Crowdfunding Podcast. This is episode 25. Today, we're going to be talking about why playing it safe is actually the riskier move for some entrepreneurs and founders. One of the things we don't want to do, especially in the beginning, is play it too safe because we need to get out there, shake things up, get our products and services in front of people, try new things. Those are all things that technically are risks, right? But we need to be comfortable with taking risks as an entrepreneur. So, if founders think they're playing it safe, I think a lot of the times they're playing it comfortable, because being comfortable is, essentially not taking as much risk as you should. And I think being comfortable can lead to the downfall of an entrepreneur. The very nature of an entrepreneur is to take risks. And that's why we get paid so much when we succeed, is because we take such big risks. Now, when it comes to running your business, if you're not taking risks in the beginning, you're probably not doing enough. You need to get out there and, shake things up, make things happen, figure out what works and what doesn't. And in order to do that, you're going to need to take risks. It's just something that's inevitably going to need to happen. Now, safe, right? The opposite of risk, which is safety, usually means familiar. If you don't want to risk something, a lot of the times you don't want to risk doing something that's uncomfortable or that's not familiar. So we have to get over that as an entrepreneur. Now, I'm not just talking about people starting their first business or people, just starting out. This really applies to people who have been doing this for a couple years, who are maybe at a plateau in their business. This is absolutely relevant to that as well. At any time during your business, playing things too safe can absolutely hurt your business. Now, with that being said, if your business is successful and has been running for a while, you're probably going to be taking more calculated risks, but you're still going to be taking risks. But in the very beginning of starting your company or launching your product or service and starting to get sales, you're going to take a lot of risks. You're going to need to take a lot of risks. And that is what is going to get you to where you need to be. And we can't be afraid of taking risks as an entrepreneur. One of my favorite motivational speakers, Jim Rohn, says, everything is risky, right? Going to work every day is risky. Driving is risky. He says, I'll tell you how risky life is. You're not going to make it out alive, right? And so we need to embrace that risk as an entrepreneur, and just remember that taking those risks, both personally and as a company, are what makes us an entrepreneur. That is the essence of it. And that is why the upside is so great, because the risk is so high. And so we want to definitely embrace that as entrepreneurs. We want to take a lot of risks in the beginning, especially, and then don't be afraid as the company continues to grow. As you start to do well, you still can't be afraid to take risks. They might be a little bit more calculated risks because you have more information, you have more overhead expenses, you have more of an idea of what this return will be on this specific risk that you're taking, so you can analyze the risks better. So that's when you're up and running more. It's definitely going to be more of a calculated risk, but especially in the beginning, you should be risking things all day, every day, because you never know what's going to work and what's going to click, both with your customers, with your staff, and even you, so you can't be afraid to take risks, especially in the beginning of your business. So one of the big things about taking risks is that, one of the hidden risks is playing it too safe. And that's one of those things that's hard to measure, because you're never going to know what you missed out on from not taking those risks, right? You never know what you're going to have passed up. You never know what you could have done if you would have taken that chance or taken that risk. So the loss of, missed opportunity is definitely something to consider when you're trying to play it too safe. If you're trying to play it too safe, there's not going to be any big monumental swings. Now, for some people, that's okay. They'd rather go on a much longer, slower, steady journey. But if you want to take massive action, if you want massive change, then it's going to involve a lot of risk. So a lot of people think that being safer or not taking as much risk is something that will essentially help them. And they think that that's kind of discipline because they don't want to risk losing time. They don't want to risk losing money. They don't want to risk, losing whatever it may be, materials or things that they need to run the business. They may not want to risk not being able to get their salary that month because they chose to take a risk. At the end of the day, you should be asking yourself not, what you may lose, but what you could gain. I would say that that's the most important thing to consider when you're wondering if you should take a risk or not, is look at the upside and really look at it, right? Because if you're going to take a big risk, you want there to be a big reward. So you definitely want to analyze the risk. I'm not saying to just go out there and start taking risks and doing crazy things. You want to analyze it and say, is this worth it? Now, the further along your business is, the more you're going to analyze it, the more you're going to have data to analyze, the more you're going to have experience to know what may happen and what the upside may be and the downsides. So if your business is further along, it's going to be a much more calculated risk just because you have more information to pull from. And at that point, each risk you take is a little riskier because you have more bills to pay and more overhead and stuff like that. But what we need to be focused on is what is the potential upside of taking that risk and how we're going to deal with missing out on the opportunity that could have been there if we don't take that risk. I think the biggest risk an entrepreneur can make is staying where they are. That's why it's important to take risks, especially in the beginning. You don't want to stay where you are. And in order to get somewhere else, you need to risk something, risk losing your time, your money, some progress, whatever it is. Every single jump and leap that you're trying to make is going to be risking something. But I'll tell you what, the biggest risk is not taking any risk at all, because that means you're going to stay exactly where you are. And as an entrepreneur, we never want to stay where we are. We always want to be growing and expanding and starting new things and doing new things, bringing new products or service to the market, starting new businesses. This is the heart and the nature of an entrepreneur. And so we don't ever want to get too comfortable. We don't ever want to stay in the same place. And in order to do that, we're going to have to take risks. That's what we are as entrepreneurs. We're natural born risk takers. And we want to definitely embrace that. So let's talk about how risk works when we're being a bootstrapped founder here. So founding without funding, we're always talking about how to start or grow your business with little to no investment, definitely not waiting on outside investors. And when we're in this position, we're definitely going to need to take risk. And it's also easier to take risk because we haven't taken an investor's money. So let's talk about that. When we have investors, especially in the beginning of the business, it's going to somewhat hinder what we can and cannot do. We're going to have to justify this in one way or another at some time or another to an investor. Your investors are going to want an explanation for why you did XYZ, why you spent money on XYZ. It's inevitably going to happen. And in the beginning of your business, it's much better to not have anyone to answer to and to take the risks that you want to take. It's one of the reasons why I always fund my own businesses from the beginning, because I want to be able to take risks. I want to be able to think of an idea and bring that idea to life and put it together, try it in the marketplace. These things all cost money, right? You're going to have to take the time and effort and maybe some money to put together this product or service or this new offering or this new idea. And then you're going to have to spend a little bit of money to take it to the market, meaning, running some ads online and putting them through a funnel, maybe having somebody call them or you call them yourself. Whatever it is, it's going to take time, money, resources. And I don't want anybody telling me, like an investor, that that's too risky, or that I shouldn't have risked that much money or spent that much money on that idea. But remember, one of those ideas may be what changes your business. Essentially, every business that I've had, it's one of those ideas where you get an idea and you say, I think this would be great. I think this would work. I'm going to go ahead and risk some of my time, some of the company's money, or maybe my money, and try to bring this to life. And sometimes that's what hits. Sometimes what you started your business out as is not what it actually becomes, because you're trying new things within that business. And sometimes one of those risks of trying a new thing, it connects. And then that may become your business's largest product or service, or may even change your entire business to only focus on that. I've seen it happen. It's happened to me. And if I never took those risks, I would have had a whole other business. I would have never had the businesses that I have now if I didn't take those risks over and over. It's not like the first risk I took or the first idea or product or service that I had that I wanted to take a risk on worked. No, this was over and over again, taking risks, bringing new things to the market, and eventually one of them hits and it's worth all the risks that you took. And so Founding Without Funding is a lot about not waiting for investors, but also not being held to have to answer to investors. Because me personally, I want to be in control of the risks that I want to take, and the new ideas, the new products, the new services that I want to bring to the marketplace, the new things that I want to try. That's one of the great things about being an entrepreneur, is that you can think of new things and bring them to life. And what I don't want to do is have to answer to an investor on why I wanted to try this. So taking risks is part of being an entrepreneur, and especially part of building a new business. And you never know what you're missing out on when you don't take those risks. So when it comes to risks, I would also say to make sure that you're also taking the small risks along the way, as opposed to gigantic risks. So what I mean by that is, you have a product or service, you have an idea, you want to, test it, take it to the market, do it on a small scale. You don't have to do it on a super large scale. And just like everything else we talk about when you're starting your business with the Founding Without Funding principles, don't build too much out. Don't risk everything on some idea that you have to build and invest a ton in, and it's going to take a ton of time to do. Those aren't the risks that you want to take. You want to break it down into smaller risks to take along the way. So, don't build things out too much. You want, anytime, especially when you're taking a risk, a new risk, doing something new, a new idea, you want to make sure you're using the MVP, the minimal viable product. Just get something out there to start testing the idea, see if the market responds to it, see if your customers respond to it. Do not spend tons of time and money and effort building out all these different things if you don't know that it works yet. So we want to take risks on a daily basis, but they should be reasonable risks, calculated, risks, and they should also be risks that are not something that took a ton of time, energy, and money to build out. We want to use the minimal amount of time, resources, and money to accomplish taking that idea, or product or service, and testing it, and taking that risk to test it. All right. So let's go ahead and open it up to questions here. So I do have some questions. Remember, we do stream this live on YouTube and X and Kick and Twitch and Facebook and all the different platforms. So you can always drop a comment. I can see your comments pop up here. Feel free to drop any comments. I can answer any questions that you have. And you can also send questions to @Kyle Hiersche or @FoundingWithoutFunding. And I have some questions here that some people sent me. So let me go ahead and get into some of these questions. So Alex is saying, I tell myself I'm being responsible by waiting. How do you know when waiting turns into hiding? So that's a great question. How do you know when waiting turns into hiding or being afraid of what you're looking to do? Well, if you have the resources to take that risk, then I would say you should do it immediately. There's no time like now. You also don't know if what you're looking to do is going to be different in a month or two or a year. And so you want to strike while the iron's hot. And another thing is you always want to bring an idea to life when you first have it. There's that spark, that energy, that excitement. And if you have that idea and are excited about it, that excitement will wane over time. So it's really important to take action when you're excited and take action right away. So if you're really delaying something, you want to figure out, is this something I really want to do or not? And you want to take action as soon as possible. Now, this is especially important with any new business idea or anything that you're looking to do. When you have that idea and you're excited about it and you're passionate about it, that is the time to act. Strike while the iron is hot and actually use that excitement, that passion, that curiosity if the idea is going to work. That will power you through to set up a calculated risk to take that idea and bring it to life. If you wait, the longer you wait, the less motivated, the less excited you will be about it. And the more time that goes by where you'll just have to sit there and wonder, would that have worked? And again, some of my businesses have completely changed business models from just one idea that we took and made a risk to take to the market, and it worked and we knocked it out of the park and it changed the entire business and business model. I can't even imagine where I would be right now if one of my businesses didn't have that happen. So taking a risk sometimes is scary. But what's really scary is when I think back and say, what would have happened if we didn't try that? Where would I be? Not only that business, because this is one of my first businesses that I'm talking about here. Not only where would that business be, but where would I be in life if we didn't take that risk, try that new thing, and have it work so well that it changed our entire business model of what we did and made us millions of dollars? What would have happened if I didn't take that risk? Every entrepreneur out there, especially anybody that's a serial entrepreneur or a founder that is founding multiple businesses, you should always be thinking about that. And I want you to think about this story when you're thinking about taking risks and understand that me personally, I'm sitting here telling you that it absolutely changed my business, changed my life just by taking one risk. And if I wouldn't have taken that risk, I have no idea where I would be right now. So very important to take risks as an entrepreneur. And if it's a new product, service, or a new idea, do it right away. Strike while the iron is hot. Act while you're passionate. That is going to carry you through doing whatever it takes to test this idea. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And that's okay. And let me tell you, you're going to be feeling a lot better about it not working if you did it immediately. It's not as big of a deal. What I don't want to do is wonder for months and months in my mind of if this is going to work, and maybe even gassing yourself up on it, getting excited about it working, and it's going to work so well someday when I launch it. You're just wasting time and you're just running circles, with just, you're just pretending this is all make-believe until you do it. So the faster you accomplish this, you have a great idea. If you act on it now, what's going to happen is you're going to do it quickly because you're passionate about it. You're trying to bring it to market. It's one of those things where, you'll stay up all night working on it because you're excited to get it out and see if it works. And so that's going to power you through to do it quickly, to do it efficiently. And then Once it comes to market, you're going to be able to see it right away, and you're not going to be sitting there and wondering if it would have worked, if you should do it, if you should still do it. And what's going to happen is you're going to be a lot less devastated if it doesn't work if you had done it right away. So if as soon as you thought of the idea, you went, oh, I'm going to try this, and you stay up all night or stay up all night for a few nights to get it done and bring it to the marketplace and try it, the quicker you do that, the less devastated you're going to be if it doesn't work. But if you spend months and months thinking about this and hoping that it'll go well when you finally do it, and then, you're taking months to make it happen and launch it, it's going to be more frustrating when it doesn't work out, as opposed to just saying, oh, I had this great idea, boom, I put it together real quick, put it out to the market. The market hasn't responded, so maybe I'm going to change this or do that, or maybe it takes off and you're happy. But either way, you're going to arrive at the answer quicker if you just get it done instead of sitting there wondering what may or may not happen. All right, question here from Brianna. What's the smallest risky thing someone can do to move forward? What's the smallest risky thing someone can do to move forward? I would say maybe just advertising a new product or service, or running ads for your product or service if you have not ran ads yet. Because again, meta ads, you can, $1 a day, as little as $1 a day. So you're risking some money. But if you're not doing that at this point, that's what you should be doing. That's the risk you should be taking, is getting your product or service in front of more people, spending the time and the money, keyword money, to run the ads and to see if something is working. And the reason why I say that's one of the smallest risks you can take is because you can spend as little as $1 a day. And if you're not taking that risk right now, if you're somebody who has a product, service, a business, and you're not advertising on social media platforms, then I don't know what you're doing. You're not really doing anything if you're not getting your product or service out in front of people. And it's not about it being on social media. It's about getting in front of people. That's where people are right now. Some people say, oh, I don't think my product or service is good for social media, or I'm not worried about social media. That's not, my business is too serious for that, or whatever the case is. No, it's not. That's where people are. They're not online people. They're not social media people. That's where the people are. And you have to meet the people where they are. And online, scrolling on their phone, is where they are. Rich people, poor people, young people, old people, that is where they are. So you have to meet them where they are to get your product or service in front of them. And nowadays, it's amazing because you have the best advertising tool in the history of the world, which is, Meta. And you have the ability to use it for free without needing some big corporation to do it for you, or some marketing agency. You can spend as little as $1 a day. And the greatest thing about it is when they see your product or service, it's not like a billboard or something where they have to remember it later or call something. They just press a button. They tap their screen and they can immediately purchase your product or service. So if you're someone who thinks that you should not be advertising on social media, or you're scared to advertise on social media, or you think your product or service is maybe too serious or too high priced for social media, it's not. Social media is where the people are. No matter what kind of product or service you're selling, those people are on social media. So start advertising. That is a small risk that you can take. If you're not taking it yet, you should be taking that risk every single day. Okay, question here from Chris. How do you take risks when you've got bills and responsibilities? Great question. So to tell you the truth, when my back is against the wall and I had no money to pay my own bills, I was paying the company bills first. So I'd have money come in, and instead of paying my bills first, I paid the company's bills and then figured out how to pay my bills after. So many founders and so many entrepreneurs and so many people who own businesses do it the opposite way. They say, I'm going to pay my personal bills first, and then I'll figure out a way to try to pay the company's bills. But I think one of the biggest differences between myself and probably a lot of other entrepreneurs that act this way is that if the company account is negative, or there's no advertising budget to run ads or whatever it is, when that money comes in, that's the first place it's going. Then I'll figure out how to pay my personal bills later, right? That's just how it has to happen. If you do anything different, then your company is just going to cease to exist. And this especially is the case when we're talking about like ad budgets. There's definitely been times where the company had no money, I had no money, but when I did get a little bit of money, take out of some kind of savings account or something like that, when I did get that money, instead of paying my own bills, I put it into an advertising budget for the company so that everything could keep moving, or else the company would essentially be dead in the water without action and activity and advertising to create sales and cash flow and action. And so, if you have personal bills to pay, I understand. But I'm telling you, I've been in the situation where I literally had no money in the company account, no money in my personal account, bills to pay. And then when a little tiny bit of money does come in, instead of paying my personal bills with it, I would put it into the company to pay the company bills, especially when it comes to an advertising budget, so that the company can continue. And I will try to figure out how to pay my bills later. But guess what's not going to work? If I pay my bills first and just leave the company with a negative balance in the bank account, no budget for advertising, then the company is dead in the water. And how am I going to make any money in the future to pay my personal bills? So as an entrepreneur, you got to get into that mind state. You're doing whatever it takes to keep your business afloat. Do not let your business be late on bills and your website start getting shut down and not having advertising budgets, and your email goes down because you haven't paid the bills. All these kind of things, you've got to sacrifice that on a personal level. If not, then the business is going to die and you're never going to have any money personally. So you got to get out of that mindset. Unfortunately, it's no fun to have no money to pay your bills. But if you're serious about being an entrepreneur, your company's bills should always be paid first. And then you figure out how to pay your personal bills. And hopefully, if you're using the money you put into the company correctly, which is probably in ads, then hopefully that'll help you generate more money to pay your personal bills. But the company always comes first. For any true entrepreneur, true founder, true business person, the company's bills come first, especially when it comes to payroll, paying employees. Never pay your own bills until you've paid your employees. That's for dang sure. And so that's, something very important to keep in mind as a founder and entrepreneur. You need to be in that mind state. The company gets paid first. Figure out how to pay your bills after that, so that the company can keep going and live to fight another day. Or else you pay your personal bills. Yes, you might survive that month, but what's going to happen next month? Because your company's now dead in the water. All right, question here from Lauren. Is quitting a job always risky, or can staying be riskier? So Lauren's asking, is quitting your job risky, or is staying at your job riskier? I probably am not the best person to answer this question because I've never had a job. My first book is called Never Had a Job, because I started my first company at 15, which is a multi-million-dollar per year company. And so I never actually had a job. So I can't say too much about the transition from, quitting a job to being a full-time entrepreneur. But I can tell you that you should be responsible about it, especially if you have a family. You obviously need to be responsible enough to understand that, there needs to be income coming in from the business that essentially will be about equal to what you were making at the job before you switch. Now, here's definitely one thing I would say about working a job and owning a business, and one thing about thinking about quitting your job to go full-time on your business. The first thing you need to think about is, do I really need to do that? A lot of people think, oh, if I just had all day to work on my business, then it would be much better. But a lot of times you already have all day. The 3-4 hours of TV that you watch, or Netflix, or these different things that you're doing, you have to max those out first. So you should be going to work to pay the bills, and then all of that other time. I know a lot of people say, I'm so busy, or I got the kids and I got this and that. In this day and age, So much stuff is done for us. So much stuff is automated and easier to run households or to do what we need to do. Everyone has a bunch of free time. I'm sorry, but they do. And you might be filling that free time with relaxing or watching Netflix or, doing these other things, scrolling through your phone for hours when you wake up or before you go to bed, all these things. All that time should be taken up by your business first. You should be going to your job to pay the bills. Every other minute of your day should be spent on your business until your business makes about as much money as your job, or I guess I should say, until your business can kick off enough money to you and still pay its bills. Then you should switch. So I think a big mistake people make is just saying, oh, if I just quit my day job and I made my company my day job, then I would be, in a better place. Here's the thing. Once you quit your job, you're still going to need to spend all of those extra hours on your company, even more so. So first step is to spend all of the waking hours in your day that you're not at your day job on building your business. Then once your business has enough money to pay you as much as your day job did, then you can switch to full time, but understand you're still going to spend all that extra time on your business. And some people say, whoa, that's not really fair. That's crazy. If I don't have my job and I work full time on my business, then that should be it. I'll have all day to spend working on my business. No, you're going to have to work all day on your business as your day job, and all night and all weekend and every second of every day. That's what being an entrepreneur is. So if you're telling yourself, I need to quit my job so I have the time to work on my business, but you have time in your days that you're not working on your business, if you have time to scroll on your phone, to watch Netflix, to go do things, use that time first. And then quit your day job and use that time as well. But remember, it's going to be in addition. You're not going to go, oh, finally I can quit my job so that I can stop working on nights and weekends and only work during the day. No. That's not how it works as an entrepreneur. You're now going to be working on your business all day during the day and at night and on the weekends. And that's just what it takes. It takes taking risks and working hard to be an entrepreneur. And there's never going to be a time where you say, oh, now I quit my job so I can be a full-time entrepreneur. So now I can just work at the office 9 to 5 and spend all my time there doing that. No, you're going to spend nights and weekends and every single day of your life involved in your business. That's just what it takes. All right, we'll take one more question here. Let's see here. Question from Monica. What's the difference between a smart risk and a dumb one? I think the difference between a smart risk and a dumb risk is really just calculating it. And in the beginning of your business, it's a little bit harder to calculate risks, but it's also easier to take the risks when you're in the beginning of your business. As your business starts to grow, starts to make revenue, and starts to have expenses to pay, then you need to take more calculated risks. And you'll also have more information to calculate those risks. You'll have more data to look at. You'll have more info on what you can spend to do it, the time, the resources that are available for it, what the upside will be, and what the downside will be. So I think a smart risk to take is a calculated one. And that's going to vary depending on where you are in the journey of your business. But I will say, in the beginning, you should be taking every risk possible because you never know where that risk is going to lead you to. And some of those risks that I've taken early on in some of my companies have absolutely changed the company and absolutely changed my life. And I do not know where I would be if I didn't take those risks early on. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We will see you on the next episode